Good morning. Hello.
All right, good morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and call the Burleigh County Water Resource District September board meeting to order. Wendy, take roll call, please.
Manager Mitchell.
Here.
Manager Reed.
Here.
Manager Jones.
Here.
Manager Smith.
Here.
Chairman Landenberger.
Here, we have a quorum. We will continue. Moving on to item 2 this morning, approval of last month's meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I just had one maybe correction on the first page of the minutes. Under the McDowell Dam topic, it says David Robinson gave the update. It was probably David Meyer.
Oh, sure, yeah. Okay, we can make that change. Anything else?
I'd move for approval as amended.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Manager Reap and a second by Manager Jones to approve the August board meeting minutes as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Minutes are approved. Moving on to item 3 this morning. Any changes or additions to the agenda? Not hearing any. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, got a motion by Manager Jones and a second by Manager Smith to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Agenda is approved. Any comments from members of the public with business before the Burleigh County Water Resource District that's not on the agenda? Not seeing any this morning. We can move on to McDowell Dam this morning. I don't know, Dave, if you got any updates for the board this morning, we could have you up here first this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Just a few things. Everything's still going good out there. We've got the Soul 50 event that is tomorrow on the beach. So they're going to start setting up today for that. And then on Sunday there is the Shiloh Christian cross-country meet.
Oh, okay.
Looking at trail counters or vehicle counts, we're at 11,114 for August, and we're still having a nuisance issue with the trail counter. I did look back I went all the way back to 21 when we put the trail counter in. We're averaging, so last year and this year we're having a little bit of an issue, either ants or bees, or the sensor is so sensitive if we get the grass too long across the way and it still hits it, it still registers. Yeah. So we're clearing that up and cleaning that up a little bit. But I did look at the average of 21, 22, and 23. And on that trail counter for August, we average about 1,400 for those 3 years. So just to give you a reference. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I wanted to mention, I kind of brought up, well, 2 other things. The repair to the shelters and a couple of the maintenance buildings from that hail that hit the property. Those quote requests went out yesterday. A little bit of a delay in them than we preferred, but we had some back and forth with insurance just to make sure we're all on the same board with everything. So we had to get some clarifications between the adjuster and the insurance and ourselves to make sure we completely understood what was being covered. But we got that cleared up, and those went out. Hope to have answers back for you quickly. We have those out for 2 weeks. I know the board doesn't meet again until the beginning of October, so we'll have that ready. My hope is that the contractor can finish them before the end of the year. So the completion date is in November. Hopefully that doesn't scare them away, because I'm sure everybody's going to be scrambling to do roof repairs before the winter comes. Yeah. But yeah, hopeful. Fingers crossed that we get some good quotes. We sent them out to quite a few, so we should be there. The other item I had briefly mentioned was the shelter belts and how densely those trees are planted in there and how little they have grown, and the multiple things. The potential for food and habitat when the emerald, and I'm going to say when, not if, when the emerald ash borer does get here. I went out and drove those shelter belts with David Robinson, and I've been out there multiple times, so I've seen them. But I just wanted to get a fresh view at them. And there are instances where the ash trees we can't even fit a 6-foot mower between them. They're so close to each other in those shelter belts, and that's when you do conservation grade shelter belts, that's how they're planted. But you never expect them all to live. And I've got a few things I'll throw up just for reference.
Okay.
So, as you can see, those are all the shelter belts that are at McDowell Dam that have ash trees in them. And those are the ones we're specifically talking about right now. There is another shelter belt to the west of the grass parking lot in that location. Those are hackberry trees. Not overly concerned with those right now. They are about 10 feet on center. So they're pretty close to each other too. I know we're not talking about specimen tree growth where they would typically be the width of the canopy of the tree, distance. We're not going to get that. I have another image here. So just for reference, this is that, just to the east of this is where the north end of McDowell Dam is, the reservoir. So this is kind of the curve as you go up to the restroom that we have or the vault toilet that we have on the north end. Those trees are 8 feet apart possibly in some areas, and as we go further north, there's a couple where you could barely fit a golf cart through. I don't think you could fit the golf cart through, actually. There's a couple that were maybe 3 feet apart.
Okay.
What we'd like to do, and for reference, these trees are probably 40 years old, 38 to 40 years old, and they're maybe 8 inches in diameter. In a normal residential situation, those trees would probably be 18 inches, if not bigger in diameter. So they're surviving, but they're not thriving. So 2 things. If we go through and what possibly like to talk about is taking out every other one of these trees, that's going to give us more room and more space for those trees to grow roots and to get moisture. And hopefully we see more growth for the ones that we do keep. The other thing that David and I had talked about in the future, specifically this area, is on the east edge of that, kind of where the tall grass is, just kind of mowing in notches and planting another row of trees equal to where we took one out. So that they'd kind of stagger. And they would be far apart because that distance is probably about 20 feet, if not more. And then a different species, so that when that ash borer does come and we do have to take the rest of those ash trees out, we have some more canopy there in the future. So just kind of planning multiple situations of planning for this.
Yeah.
What type of tree are you thinking about planting, David?
We haven't really settled on it. You've got multiple options that you could do. Oak tree are great, but they're really slow growing. I mean, so slow. Hackberries aren't a bad option, but we've already got a couple of rows of hackberries. Try to get some diversity in there. We've got an arborist on staff. I'd kind of bounce some ideas off of her before we settled on something. But yeah, there's multiple options out there. We could even, the ash trees and hackberries are large canopy shade trees. We could even go drop it down to like a medium-sized tree and go with some buckeyes or some other trees like that. Yeah. So that gives great food for animals too. So.
True.
Yep. So just wanted to bring this up as a discussion. David and I kind of talked about if this was something that we move forward with, what kind of a schedule. It's a lot of trees.
Yeah.
It's a lot of trees to take out. So it would be over a few years to start thinning this out, because not only do we have to take them down as staff, we also have to dispose of the material as staff. So there's twofold, and then the future, planting as well.
Are any of the trees at all showing any signs of disease?
No, not, other than the typical,
Yeah.
for the lack of knowing the professional term that our forester has told me multiple times, the white foamies that you see on the ash trees, everybody calls it that, and that does weaken the tree. It makes the wood soft and punky in the center, and it is prone to breaking. There were a few trees that I noticed when we were driving around that had that, but other than that, no. We do know that emerald ash borer is the closest so far was just on the border of Fargo and between North Dakota and Minnesota. So it was just, I think it was just northeast of Fargo.
So, Mr. Chairman, spreading the distance out would it prevent it? Would it give you a better chance, obviously, of avoiding that type of situation? Or
No, it wouldn't.
it wouldn't?
Taking out every other tree would give us a better chance of survival for or would actually give the trees that we have now a better chance of survival for in the short term before it comes. But it would also eliminate half of the food when they do come. The prior forester, actually two city foresters ago, they started developing a mitigation plan, and one of the mitigation results was that if one tree in Bismarck had emerald ash borer, they wipe out every ash tree within a mile radius of that tree. They would go through and remove them to stop the spread, slow the spread. It's not going to stop the spread, it's going to slow it. So if a tree in one of those shelter belts got it, they'd all be susceptible to it.
So
I mean, they'd all be food.
It would just leave the remaining trees in a healthier condition to
It was,
potentially
yeah.
battle
And
it.
so we're trying to get a little bit ahead of this when it comes, so we don't have all those trees to take down. We've got half of them to take down, and start additional plantings at the same time.
And that was the other question I had. I think you said it, though. You would try to do this with staff?
Yes.
And that's, okay.
Yep. And David's on the, I don't know if you can throw that back up, the aerial, there we go. That south row, David's already started planting another row of trees closer. There's enough room between that shelter belt and the farm field to start growing some additional trees as another windbreak. So he's already started that, but they're all the conservation grade ones, obviously. So he plants a lot of trees out there every year to try and keep it nice and to plan for the future. So we're always trying to think ahead of how we're going to continue to have what we do have right now.
Yeah, you guys have always done a good job of, keeping it up there. But one question I have, when you remove these trees, do you have to, how far down do you have to get the stump? I mean, you just go to the ground surface or 4 inches into the ground? Okay.
And he did purchase a stump grinder last year? 3 years ago, sorry.
Yep.
Boy, how time flies. So, and there's other options, and sometimes when you do that, they'll kind of shoot up some suckers and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
we can treat them so they don't keep coming back.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah. And then I was curious, any additional budget do you think we would need for any of this effort? I mean, you're buying new trees, but those are, let's get those for free, don't we?
no, well, we don't get them for free.
For free.
We do have to pay for them, but it's not a huge
Yeah.
amount, and
That's
the
kinda
amount
what I
of
was
trees that David's bought every year has just fit in the budget.
Okay. Yep.
So it's generally, I think I want to say less than 2,000 or 3,000. Yeah, I want to say generally it's been around $1,500 to $1,700 for trees every year.
Okay.
So
And then my last question, if we do have a lot of these, this wood material to dispose of, our playgrounds have wood chips at all, any of them? Do we have a?
I wouldn't recommend that.
Okay. All right.
The engineered wood fiber that goes in playgrounds it seems like it's just wood chips, but and that's why they call it engineered wood fiber.
Yep.
It's designed to handle the impact. It's been tested. It's certified. It's a certain size, certain thickness, certain everything
Yep.
to meet those standards. Standard wood chips don't do that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Michael?
Mr. Chairman, and Dave, real quick, had a conversation with the city forester about the removal of some of the ash trees in town, and they've been very specific to try and remove those that are injured or ill, or those that are at higher risk. And Dave, I know you're trying to take out every other tree, but the scenario might be that, if you can identify those that are at higher risk, or, damaged or something that might come out before the others as a comparative. All it's doing is slowing down the potential infection. Kind of like healthy ones don't get as infected as easy as those who have damaged branches or something. So just background. I know you guys are going to do what you need to, but just a comment. So.
Yeah, and we looked at that a little bit. Thank you, Michael. We looked at that a little bit too. I kind of started pointing out the ones that did have the foamies, and I was wondering how that would fit in the progression. Do we start with that one and go backwards as of every other one, and how does that fit with all of them? So we'll look at the best case scenario and if we do move forward with this.
Okay. Good.
Good plan.
I was going to ask, any updates on the playground equipment?
Oh, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Yes. We met with the contractor out there last week, laid everything out, and end of last week they started, end of last week they started doing some ground removals and removing the sod and started forming up. Have they poured? Did they pour yesterday? Okay. They're still waiting to pour concrete. I know that I talked with the general on it, and I believe today or tomorrow they have their playground certifier coming in to start setting things before they start putting posts and things like that in. So we're going to be out of the ground pretty quick with the playground.
Yeah.
So
Good. All right. Any other questions for Dave this morning? All right. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Steve.
can I ask?
Yeah.
Is there an opinion on the trees? Should
Oh.
we something to move forward with? Should we?
No, I think at this point.
Do we want to think about it a little bit, or?
No, I think that sounds like a good plan. We trust you guys, what you guys are doing. You got folks on staff that you can,
Move forward and
yep,
get
Okay.
it done.
All right. Thank you.
yep.
I appreciate
thank
it.
you. Yep. Okay, we can move on to the supplemental water supply easement negotiations. At this point, the Van Beek easement has been recorded. We have been making several attempts over the last few weeks to contact the remaining parcel owner. I myself have called, I did have a conversation with him a couple weeks ago, and he said he wanted to take some time to review the documents again and get his kind of head back in the game and get back to us. Since then, I've tried to reach out to him a couple different times, left messages, I've texted him. I'm not hearing any response as of yet. So I don't know, Dave, what we're thinking maybe might be the next steps, but at one time we talked about trying to reach out to him several times, and then if we don't hear from him, let's just go ahead and send him a letter, kind of documenting that we've made several attempts to reach him, and that the board will probably move into their next, barring discussions at probably our October meeting, that we can then move into our next steps, whatever we want to look at. Dave, does that?
Yes, that sounds like an idea. Mr. Chairman, I think I would also send a letter to Mr. Anderson, either from you as board chairman or from me as council, just to memorialize the fact that you have made those attempts and they've been unsuccessful.
Yeah.
And the board will then, at its October meeting, examine what options it has.
Yep. Okay, that sound like a plan?
Mr. Chairman, just an update. Travis has been looking into and checking on the Outdoor Heritage Fund. Their next application deadline, I believe, is November 1st.
Yep.
So
Okay.
that's the option that's out there. We have been kind of in the background preparing updates and information that would go into that application, so we're prepared to submit when the board authorizes.
Okay,
Okay?
November 1st, okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, so at this point, I think we'll have, if the board is consensus, we'll have Dave write the letter, draft a letter, and then we'll have it probably come from you, Dave. If that's okay?
Yes.
Yep. And just kind of lining out, like, as Dave mentioned, that we've been making several attempts to contact him, and that the board will have a discussion at their October meeting, probably in the executive session.
And what I would do for the standpoint of Dave's records, Travis, if you can go back in and figure out which dates you actually called and contacted him, as well as James, just so that we have that, in our records, not necessarily something to inform him on, but
Yeah.
just so that you can document the number of times we've made that contact.
Okay. All right. I did make 2 phone calls and a text, but I can talk to Travis. Okay. All right, any questions on that? Okay. Anything else on McDowell Dam, Michael? Nothing, I think, this morning?
No,
Okay.
that's it.
All right, we can move on to item 6 this morning, financial reports.
Mr. Chairman, board members, we, on page 6 and 7 is the balance sheet and subsidiary fund listing. I'll just go through some of the activities in August. Checking started balance was $2,104,712.48. We paid bills in the amount of $220,357.59. Income in the amount of $28,289.90. That consisted of a small amount of real estate tax, some state aid. Majority of it was reimbursements for the McDowell Dam project, and about almost $21,000. So, with that, we ended the month with a balance of $1,917,620.13. The Brevera Wealth Fund started out $2,442,615.56. We had almost $9,000 in interest. When you subtract out about $500 in management fees for that fund, we had a net of about $8,400 in interest. So we ended with a balance of $2,451,051.04. Reserve fund balance remained unchanged. So our total liquid assets are $5,069,346.66.
Okay.
With that, I move for approval of the balance sheet on pages 6, 7 as presented.
So moved.
Okay, got a motion by Manager Reap and a second by Manager Jones to approve this month's balance sheet. When do you take roll call vote, please?
Manager Mitchell,
Yes.
Manager Reed,
Yes.
Manager Jones,
Yes.
Manager Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Landenberger.
Yes, motion passes. The balance sheet is accepted.
Mr. Chairman, similarly, pages 8 and 9 are the profit and loss statements and year-to-date budget amounts. They went through them, look in good order. I'd move for approval as presented.
So moved.
Got a motion by Manager Reap, second by Manager Jones to accept this month's profit and loss statement. When do you take roll call vote, please?
Manager Mitchell,
Yes.
Manager Reed,
Yes.
Manager Jones,
Yes.
Manager Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Landenberger.
Yes, the motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, one more item I neglected to mention, the Brevera Wealth Fund. The current interest rate is 4.27% or a net of 4.02%. So essentially the same it's been over the last few months. So
Still over 4%.
Remain unchanged.
So good.
That's good.
Okay.
I'll just move on. The 26 budget, I don't have any new news. Haven't heard anything else to differ, so I assume it'll progress as we've heard before.
Okay.
The final meeting is this month?
Sometime, and I don't know when it is, but sometime this month. Yeah.
And in a sense, they basically accepted the budget that we presented.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything that would be
Yeah.
to the contrary, so
Right.
it would be, essentially what we had in 25.
Yep. Okay.
Well, that should be.
Okay. And then in your packet too, on page 10, there's those pledge securities, just kind of more for reference, for information. Yep. Okay, anything else, Dennis? Financial?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Move on to item 7 this morning, drainage permits and complaints.
Wet.
Wet, yeah. Well, yeah, now it's been dry again. It seems like we've been on this kind of roller coaster all summer, but,
Michael and I spoke of it this last week, and it's just been too wet to do it.
yeah.
And hopefully,
That River Road?
The River Road.
River Road, okay.
hopefully, maybe next month.
Casey? I don't know, yeah. He's nodding,
Yeah.
so.
Casey's
nodding.
shaking his head, so.
Okay.
I thought he would do it Saturday in the rain.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be.
Yeah, now that we've discussed this, it'll probably rain for the next 3 weeks, right? Yeah. Okay.
What else have we got? Kimball Park.
Okay, any updates on that one, Mike?
Yeah, I can touch on the next ones real quick. Like Keelboat Park, I talked to Chuck a little bit about this, or not Keelboat Park, but Hawk Tree. Keelboat Parks, we're just waiting. I've got some information. I haven't decided whether I want to do a memo or a letter to the city.
Okay.
On Hawk Tree, we're going to take a closer look at what the older LiDAR tells us. Because some of the things that we're seeing out there, it appears as though it was improperly constructed to start with, but we don't have any evidence of that. So want to go back and just check the LiDAR, kind of like we did on Grass Lake, where, you know, what was available before, see if there's any information that would tell us. The other thing, it appears that as though the stormwater management plan that was approved by the city of Bismarck occurred prior to when the county was, or actually, everybody was paying attention, if you will. In other words, everybody thought the city of Bismarck was enforcing the stormwater management plans. Well, they really weren't at that point in time. So I want to go back in the chronology and kind of document that, because it's one of the, if you want to call it the crack in the armor that may have resulted in some of this. So we're still looking at things a little closer, and we'll continue to update you as we go through that. So
Okay.
under Mike Cook, we've got some information.
Real quick, Mike, I
Sure.
was just curious, Chuck, have you talked with you had a contact with on that board that you went out there and visited with? Have you discussed anything with them lately?
Not lately. Mike and I talked about it after the fact, and he's just kind of taking the lead on from there, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
What I-
wanted to maybe at some point, maybe we want to reach back out and just make sure to let them know that we're
Yeah,
still.
I'm thinking what I'll do, if you're okay, Chuck, I'll probably just give him a call. Yeah, I don't know if he's watching the meeting this morning, obviously, but I'll give him a call and give him an update as to where we're at.
Okay,
So,
yeah. Just make
okay.
sure that they're in the
Mr.
loop
Brown.
and-
That needs
Yeah.
to be resolved.
Okay. Yeah, let's work to get, so the memo you're looking to prepare, would that be for this board or you?
Yes.
Okay.
The jurisdictional question, I'm almost positive the decision on that has been set, and that there's not a jurisdictional element for this board. But what the background is and the history of what created it and where the next steps might be. If it is in one of those gaps that the city wasn't enforcing things, it is what it is. I mean, the city's not going to come out and enforce it, I don't believe, at this point in time. The county, it doesn't have enforcement authorities on the city's stormwater management plans. But what I want to verify, the fact is in fact the original construction the cause of the problem? Because then we can point it back in essence to somewhat to the developer side of the equation, even though it's probably unlikely that they would do anything, so.
Refresh my memory, how long has that been there?
That's been, well, construction was what,
Oh, gosh.
2012? It's been been many, many years. Okay,
I was thinking it was in the
okay.
On a Casey with Burleigh County Highway Department, I want to say it was 2009, somewhere in there, when that Metro Industrial Park initially had most of the construction going on. The plat had started, golly, it was in the early 2000s in there. Because some of the stuff with Metro Industrial Park is all the places that built out there went through the site plan process that is defined by the city of Bismarck government, and they applied for stormwater management plan waivers to have more flow go out, such as 0.5 CFS to 1 CFS. It's just the cumulative effect of 14 properties doing that is where you're getting more of an issue, and was discussed back in 2013. We're in a staff meeting with county and city, and they were looking at approving another one. And from the county side, we just said, we have to stop. You have to start detaining it because it's starting to create, it's just a cumulative effect over time, creating a potential issue out there. But we have spoken with some of the people that have properties out there that did develop them with the site plans, and I did it legally. I did everything per what the government said, and I got the proper waivers. This is not my issue. So it's a tough issue to go over.
And I think going back to Mr. Cook was informed about the opportunity, if you want to call it that, for the the Water Resource District could create an assessment district. What we have, or what we will have, is if you want to call it a prorated balance, to where if in fact that were to occur, he'd need X number of people on the commercial side to support that, otherwise it would not happen. And that's basically the number we'll come up with. I don't know that he's going to get those people to step up because obviously, as Casey said, they did everything in accordance with what they needed to do. Why would they, want to participate in that process? But that's the only thing that's out there. I mean, that closes the books, if you will, from the jurisdiction of the board.
Okay.
Yeah. Last time we really looked at it, 10 years ago, we looked at if a special assessment's done, you need 60% of the properties in Metro Industrial to sign off.
Yeah.
Which challenging.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yes, Casey?
Yep.
Okay, we can probably move on to item E there, the Chase DeWitt's tile permit application.
Yeah, we've talked about that. Travis has received, and you have in your file, the documentation of ownership. At this point in time, visiting with legal counsel and Dave, we would send information to Mr. DeWitt saying his application is complete. There's really no processing or notification that this board does. It's just a matter of recording that document as complete. It's kind of a problematic process for notification. The board doesn't notify anybody downstream. It's the landowner that notifies the board on their completion. So, Dennis, you've been through a few of these, and maybe you've got some other insight. So,
one question I have is that we as a board have the ability to put conditions on that permit.
Yes.
And did we discuss what potential conditions may be warranted, if any?
we have standard, or you have standard conditions that are in your policy, and I would think those are the conditions that would be placed on this. I don't know that you'd put any more on there.
Okay.
I thought there was discussion about some other culvert or something, some other crossing.
There is a
That,
there's a township crossing immediately down, or township roadway crossing immediately downstream. And we were talking about the notification part of that. And really based on this, is no notification of that landowner required. We recognize that obviously the township has the roadway, but it's probably under easement, so.
okay. Let's have, I don't know, Travis, if you can go back and resurrect that discussion from a couple months ago that we were looking at with this permit application, and to Dennis's point, make sure that if there was any other discussion on conditions or things of that nature, that we make sure
Right.
we, 'cause at that point, we kind of just paused because we said, well, we can't really move forward with reviewing this until we know the ownership, and that's been cleared up now, so I feel like we need to kind of, Dennis's point, go back and make sure that we're, okay, as a board, good with moving forward. If there's any conditions or anything like that we want to put on there, let's discuss that. So I know we have a window now of probably 30 days from about now.
Yeah, the original application that he sent in, there was 3 different items of note that we picked up from that original application. One was the clarifying the ownership of the property, and that at that time, he was not actually on the deed
Right.
for the parcel that he was looking at tiling, so he was in the process of purchasing it, but they hadn't actually closed on it yet. The second item was, as Michael noted, the downstream culvert, so basically it would be a simple matter of, we noted he needed to notify the owner of that roadway, whether it was county or township, regarding this drainage, and then that would be putting some additional flow through that culvert.
Okay.
So wanted to give notice of that. And then the third item of note was notifying the landowners adjacent to the receiving body of water downstream, which was more than the mile that is stipulated in the permitting requirements for notification. But essentially, we're looking at whether we want him to notify the landowner who is adjacent to the receiving body of water where this water would be ultimately landing, because it's a closed basin, and notifying them that there would be some additional input of water to that particular body, and whether that notification was required or not. But we thought it would be nice to include that as a courtesy to just inform the landowner or the owners of those parcels.
Can we request that? I don't know if we can actually.
That would be a question for Dave.
Yeah, I don't think we can require that, but we can request it, right?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Okay.
But in the form of comment, I don't see that a comment is inappropriate, even though there's no authority.
Yep, I think that's some due diligence on our on behalf of the board here, is that we're trying to make sure that more communication is provided to adjacent landowners, and we can't require it, but we can certainly put that in the.
We'd suggest it,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think at this point, about the only thing left is just to, request that he also, in addition to notifying the downstream landowners within the next mile of that water course, to include the county or township who owns that roadway as well, because they weren't in the parcels that he was indicating that he would notify. So just to basically add that one and say, hey, we're gonna have this additional flow that will be coming, from this drainage, and, we don't know for sure exactly what kind of flow that would be at this point, but it would be putting a little bit more through that culvert, than it currently sees, so, be as, just a courtesy notification to the county to inform them that this drainage project is happening.
Okay.
One other one, Mr. Chairman, relative to the application. He noted on there that he was discharging into a natural water course. And in all
Oh, that's
reality,
right.
it's a pond, slough, or lake because
Yep.
of the system that's out there. It's a wetland.
Did anybody visit with him about that? Maybe be making that change and resubmitting?
I recall Travis may have visited with him on it, but we didn't ask him for that change. That would be one thing that
Right,
we
I made a
wanted to-
comment of that, on the application, which he filled it out correctly as that body currently sits, that it's a water body. During dry years, when that water body dries up, then it becomes just kind of a grassy area, so that the water level goes down to where then it becomes more of a water course, just the wet path of travel for the water to move through. And it's gonna vary, but most of the time, it's got standing water in it, and it's a wetland. So the way it currently sits right now, the way he filled out the application, is discharging into a wetland. So it's just a simple matter of, check all boxes that apply. And, as he filled it out correctly as
Yeah, I was
the
thinking it was-
ground currently sits.
He had checked water course.
He
and I think
checked
we were
water
thinking It really
course.
wasn't water
Oh, really?
course, it was more of a
Right.
water body.
Right.
That's,
So-
Yeah,
maybe
it's-
just check that.
Yeah, I guess-
It's really kind of subjective based
It
on how
is,
you want to
yeah.
view that. And
Okay.
like I said, it's not really a lake, but it's just kind of just a wetland, and
slough, yeah.
it's, it's the natural water course. So
Okay.
I think that's just getting pretty minor semantics on exactly what would be considered.
And then, so Dennis, as a board now at this point, do we need to approve this? Not approve this, but it's,
Yeah, I was just reading through our policy. It's been a while since I looked at it anyway. And so it starts out at its meeting referring to the Water Resource District on a certain date, the district approved application to install subsource management system number, blah, blah, blah. And then sets out about 9 separate conditions that are, relatively generic but appropriate. And so it looks like that, we need to take some formal action at some point in a meeting.
So,
It
Dennis,
could be October.
yeah. A couple of things. Obviously, we can get him to update the application based on the water course scenario, but I question, again, the term approved. It should be accepted, because it's not like we're giving any approval of the process.
Yeah, so I'm looking at a letter template that was developed as part of our policy system, so we certainly can change that, yeah.
Right. And I guess, it goes back to the, words matter, where this board is not really approving, it's just accepting the application, because based on the current century code, you're not approving anything.
Or possibly consider, like when we review submittals, to say reviewed with no exceptions taken.
Yeah.
okay, so at this point, I think, maybe we do the formal action at next month's meeting. But I think at this point, we probably need to reach back out to Mr. DeWitt's, make sure you give him an update on kind of where we're looking at for a timeline.
And then we'll formalize the letter template for approval by the board
Yep.
in October.
Let me take a look at those conditions, see if we want to add a couple of these other conditions that we talked about with the culvert, and then the notification of the additional
Yeah.
landowner.
We'll draft those and include those in the letter in accordance with the additional conditions or the conditions in policy.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
I think too that what we can do is preface that, and I'll work with Mike on the letter, but actually cite the statute so that sets forth the limitations within that
a
statute
good
as to
idea.
why we're doing it.
Yep.
And then if we couch any sort of comments that we normally would make as comment rather than as approval, I like what Mike has said, we're accepting it, we're not approving it. We just need to track that with the actual language out of the law.
Yep.
And I think we're okay. It's frustrating because it's very limited, but it is what it is.
Yep.
So let me caveat my comment. If we accept it, can we set conditions on something? from a terminology perspective. Versus approving.
Well, I don't think comment, if the board makes comments, that's not setting conditions on it.
Yeah, but we have policy conditions.
Yeah, we have conditions in our policy that. It's a good question.
Again, I caveat what I thought, but, because I'm looking at the term approval. But, if you're going to condition it, you almost have to be in approval mode. My thought, again.
Yeah.
Be nice
Contradicting myself.
It'd be nice to review the actual law. We've not gone through one of these, but the other question I have, so there's that issue, but the other question I have is the timeliness of our conditions. Because it seems to me there's a time period to determine if it's complete or not, which are doing that, 3 days, right?
That's 3 days.
But is it a 30-day period after that completeness that you have to issue any conditions to that permit? Does that sound right?
I think that's what I recall.
Yeah, I believe that. We'll have to double check that.
So if we did it at our October meeting, we
What is that date?
probably would be okay.
And that's kind of, I was wondering if Travis reached out to DeWitt's and just let him know that, the board meets once a month. This document is dated August 26th. This warranty deed.
Yeah.
We probably received it a week ago.
Right. From a
So-
technical perspective, and I hate to do this, but it's out there. From a technical perspective, the application is still incomplete because of the documentation as to which, whether it's a wetland or a water course that he's discharging into. So what we should do is get an updated application from him with an updated complete application from him, paperwork-wise, that attaches the information that he's provided now, which makes it acceptable. We can step through that process.
And Travis, I guess my thought would be is if he was really hoping to get some work done this fall, that if we're starting to squeeze him on that construction timeline. So if you could maybe visit with him and just see where he's at with things, because I really would hate to hold him up just because we're, at this point, maybe we should have had everything ready for this meeting. And, we're just kind of working our way through this. As Dennis mentioned, this is our first kind of step on this. But maybe reach out to him, and then I'm maybe going to suggest maybe Dave, Dennis, myself, and Michael jump on a call
Yeah.
in the
Okay.
next week and kind of
Yeah.
walk through that, the statute and just kind of see what our next step, maybe have some more information from Mr. DeWitt's and we can kind of pull this thing together and let him know at this point, October 8th is our next meeting. But if he feels we need to move this forward, we could probably do a special meeting to make that happen.
Well, or we could just conditionally approve it based on us being satisfied with the permit at this, right now.
Oh, I suppose we could do that too.
That was my thought, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Let me summarize what
Okay.
I understand
That's a good
the
idea.
board's action will be. The board would be, and I'll use the term approval because that's what policy currently says, is that you're approving it subject to the conditions in policy and the suggested notification of the roadway authority as well as an additional downstream landowner, and that the application be updated for completeness relative to the discharge,
Type or
the
whatever.
type of
location.
discharge location.
Yeah.
And that if all that is adequately provided, that the chairman and manager REAP would review and the letter could be sent.
Okay.
So it's just, actually, that sounds great. It is 30 days from the receipt of a completed application
Okay.
to email him email the individual any recommended conditions. Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, do we have a motion to, as Michael kind of stated, to basically approve, it's not approve, but,
The policy currently says approve, so from a technicality
So we're gonna-
perspective, that would be.
approve the application with the conditions and with the other requirements that we're asking with the culvert and then the notification of the additional downstream landowner, the completeness of the application. And if all those things are checked out and between our meeting with Dennis and I and David and Michael, that things look in order, that we can go ahead and, so that's I guess, does somebody want to have that motion?
So we're, so we're pre-approving, basically.
In a sense, yeah.
In a sense.
Yep. If you guys are okay with that,
Yeah.
if you guys are okay with Dennis and I working with Michael.
Well, it'll expedite it. I think.
Yeah, that's kind of my concern, yeah.
I will make the motion.
Okay.
Well, okay, I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion by Manager Jones and a second by Manager Smith. Did you capture?
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it.
Okay. In a sense, what we're doing is basically at this point is the board approves, is allowing Dennis and I to work with David and Michael to work our way through that application with the conditions that we discussed this morning. And that everything looks in order that as a board, we are going to approve that permit application. Let Wendy catch up on that before we do any other questions or thoughts on that?
Well, I have a thought on our form, and I think Dennis is absolutely right. Instead of approving, I think we need to change that verbiage to accepting. Because there will be times in the future where we may use that word approve and somebody will do something and we're not knowledgeable of it. So I think accepting would be much more appropriate in that form. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would, if that's what the state statutes require, I think that's something we'll have to look into and to see the exact verbiage in
Yeah.
there and make sure we're matching with
I
what,
think we should.
you know, the bill requires us to do.
We can go back and recheck that.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Good
Because
point.
you may by statute be,
Requirement.
it's almost, it's a required or mandatory approval. You don't have a choice not to approve it, which is kind of
Right.
strange in this situation.
Right,
I just listened to another water resource district go through the same conversation,
yeah,
so,
okay.
You wouldn't happen to have the code on that, would you?
not on top of me, I'd have
Yeah.
to look it up.
I think it's on that application.
Yeah, it's on the app.
So if you go back a couple months with our
Yeah.
meeting minutes,
I've got that.
or agenda packet, you can see that. Okay, at this point, we have the motion and in a second. Are there any questions? Is everybody clear kind of where we're heading with this? I guess Chuck, Dennis, good? Okay. Wendy, you good? Okay, take a roll call vote, please.
Manager Mitchell,
Yes.
Manager Reed,
Yes.
Manager Jones,
Yes,
Manager Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Landenberger.
Yes, motion passes. Okay, then Michael, I don't know if you, Dave, if you guys want to get together and
Yep.
schedule a time, Dennis and I. Okay,
Okay.
all right, thank you. And then Travis, you'll reach out to Mr. DeWitt, just kind of give him kind of a summary of what we discussed today and kind of where we're heading and make sure he's, okay. Yeah, just. Yep, okay, thank you. All right, anything else on drainage permits and complaints this morning? Okay, we can move on to projects, item 9. I don't think there's anything to update regarding it. Well, maybe
Yeah,
there is.
just on Hogue
Island.
Island, we haven't not done anything with the easement revisions. We'll get to them. They're just kind of on the schedule. Though I will let you know, I was contacted by a private individual who was looking at buying a property on Hogue Island. And the scenario being is how we know what we know. They were questioning the bank stabilization in front of them. Part of it's a Section 32 project, part of it's private. So they're going to need to be checking as to whether or not that stabilization that's there has been permitted or not. As we found out with the others, a lot of it was not permitted. And I've also notified them that any work within the Water Resource District's easement and the setback requirement based on that easement has to be complied with. So just background information
Okay.
that's out there.
It wasn't one of these parcels, though.
No,
It was different.
no, it wasn't one of these. It was further north. It's one of the undeveloped parcels.
Okay,
So, but I thought it's important. It was nice to have a landowner actually ask questions and
yeah.
get information before they step into the unknown.
Okay, update on Apple Creek slide?
Yeah, the installation of the monitoring equipment is in place. Their first monitoring occurred probably about a week ago. They're going to be monitoring again in the next couple days to see whether they're not, the inclinometers show any movement. We have not heard an update from Bar. Bar also installed their inclinometers as part of their upper slope system. So that's kind of setting out there. Don't know where that's at. We did get another invoice from Braun and BGC that
Okay.
obviously is part of the process. Received a notice from DES that the quarterly report is due October 15th. There's a number of background elements in there that, percent complete, dollars expended, et cetera. So by your next meeting, we'll have a request for reimbursement under that grant application. Relative to the grant application itself, it was originally filed using the Burleigh County number. Now they've changed from the DUNS number to the UEI number, federal government bureaucracy change. And we were looking at, I know Wendy was working on it for a while, and then we stepped in to try and assist the process. And some of the questions in the application we don't have answers for them very quickly. So in talking with Carl Meyer and DES, they've concurred that we can continue to use the Burleigh County UEI number, which was provided by Mary Sanger. So that's all resolved, and we can go ahead and request reimbursement.
Yeah, there was just
part
some
of the-
discussion back in July with DES about this, the Burleigh County Water Resource District getting their own UEI
Right.
number. That was the process we went down, and obviously it became quite challenging to get that number, so, and the window is closing.
Right.
So
And
we need
he-
to get that submitted, so.
And Carl did check with his accounting people from the state and said that it was okay to use the Burleigh County number.
Perfect,
So,
okay. Good, thank you.
yep.
Any other questions on the Apple Creek slide?
And I believe, I don't remember whether I sent out, we had more recent photos that were just taken. Okay.
Yeah, I
just-
think I did see.
I think I
those,
just
yeah.
sent out an email with the new link
Yeah.
for those photos. So, okay.
Okay. All right, nothing else on that. We can move on to other old business this morning. I don't know if there's any updates on the CRS. We've got Mitch here this morning, so. Good morning, Mitch.
Good morning, Chair Landenberger and members of the board. We had the meeting, I don't even remember what day it was now. It's been kind of a busy summer. Earlier this summer, they showed up, had two people from FEMA and then Tyler Spomer from DWR. And we discussed the program at length for 3 days. And we did a drive-through in the county, and they noticed all the violations and some of the things that we don't know whether, right now, at this point, I don't know whether they're going to make us fix these or not.
Okay.
These are previous to my time and also earlier when I first started. But that's still up in the air. And from what I understood in the first meeting, we had one violation that they wanted fixed, and we are working on that right now. Currently, we had a meeting with him, with the owner, and Toman Engineering. He intends to plat the property and build a new building. And there's an area on his property where he can build. It's out of the floodway.
This is that pole barn that was,
Yeah,
that we
yeah,
discussed before?
yeah.
Okay,
And so he's in the process of creating a plat and separating a small acreage out of that and moving the old building out of there and placing a new building to the northeast corner.
okay.
So hopefully that's going to progress before the end of the year, maybe. Let's
Okay.
hope.
So what about these other violations, and is that,
Well, it's, he's going to write a letter. He's going to send a letter in October.
okay,
We'll see. And in the grand scheme of things, the NFIP has, there's only 160 properties in Burleigh County that are on NFIP insurance.
Really?
Yeah. And so this is a big lift for 190 properties and a lot of work. But I still hope we can pursue this, but it's going to be a lot of work.
you say 160 or 190?
160 properties on the NFIP.
NFIP.
90 properties are in the special flood hazard areas,
Okay,
which in some people's eyes, that's not a whole lot of properties that are on this that are taking advantage of the NFIP insurance.
right,
They don't need it. They don't see they don't see the value in it. I mean, it's only, it caps out to $250,000 a year. And so a lot of people just, they own these properties outright. They don't have to have, the FDIC requirements, bank loans and all that stuff. So, from that point, I do want to, I still want to pursue this
Okay,
project.
I was gonna ask that question, so, okay, sounds like you're still,
In light of the fact of what's also going on with Bismarck's proposed growth phasing plan. I don't know if you've heard of this on the ETA discussion. They plan, I don't know if you've seen the maps, they plan to give us almost 70% of their floodplains as a gift.
okay.
If the both county commissions agree to this. This would exponentially increase our job responsibilities in this area.
Mitch, could you restate that? I didn't know if I caught what you said. They intend to give us 70% of what?
Their floodplains, the special flood hazard areas. All the way, starting up at south of Burnt Creek, this is where our jurisdiction starts. Their jurisdiction ends on Burnt Creek. Ours is above it. Starting at Burnt Creek, going all the way south along the Missouri River, will be
Out of the ETA.
out of their ETA.
Yeah.
And then going east, Burleigh, Apple Creek, up to Copper Ridge subdivision, and then Apple Creek on the east side of their, I think probably approximately, I don't know how far out, 54th Street. I have to look at it, but this also includes the Apple Creek on Highway 10. So, and some of these certain areas inside there, closer to the city, some of the neighborhoods that are in floodplain areas now that were mapped, that have.
So I imagine that changes our jurisdictional footprint then too, a little bit.
Yeah.
Massively, yeah. It's
Maybe.
yeah. I should have brought a map, but
Yeah,
it's like it's going to cost Burleigh County money for administration costs. It's going to be more people coming to you for their problems and more. Yeah, it's. But they're all in a discussion phase right now. They have created this map. This is has been part of their planning for a while, and they haven't discussed the ETA or the release of the ETA to the Burleigh County. That's just been going on recently, only fairly about 2 months now. And so if that happens, then we will have to get into the CRS because the city's on these CRS with these properties now.
I wonder if we should look at either attending a meeting or maybe having our own individual meeting with the city to discuss a little bit more on this, but Kate? Yeah.
Well, I was going to let Casey address that. I think there's a number of things out here when you talk about the CRS program, and Mitch, I understand where you're coming from. If in fact that shifts, that would change the CAV that you just went through because you've got a lot of new jurisdictional area that would come to play that would have to be evaluated and audited. So,
It's going to be costly.
yeah, there's a number of factors that play into that, so.
Yeah.
So the discussions we've had as staff, it's all preliminary. No boards have approved anything. The joint City of Bismarck and Burleigh County boards haven't approved anything. Some of what we've discussed is all rural subdivisions that are currently in the ETA would now be out of the ETA. And it's essentially 95% of the people that live in the ETA would then be out. So known drainage issue areas like Shamrock up by 26 that's had just long-term different things that we've all dealt with over the years, and going through there would come out a lot of all the floodplain in the southwest of town going through there, like Misty Waters would all of a sudden be 100% county. Going through there, the city would look, their current proposal is retaining areas that are currently pretty much undeveloped, that would still stay in the ETA. And there's still a lot of discussions going back and forth. And they're going to present this September 17th to the joint City of Bismarck and Burleigh County Board. I don't know if all the commissioners will be there. I know they'll have representatives at least. The last meeting they had on that, they did have a kind of a brief presentation the City of Bismarck did, and they kind of showed the southeast corner and not the whole area because they're still working on parts. But a good example is Imperial Valley would no longer be in the ETA, and that would go out. High Plains, the subdivision that's to the west of it on the south side of Burleigh Avenue, that would completely go out of the ETA, and that'd be in the county going through there. So, and we've had discussions in the future areas they want to retain that are currently undeveloped. Their intention is all those areas would over time develop and be annexed into the City of Bismarck, and they would just grow around these areas that would just stay in the county. Going from there, unless, say 50 years from now, somebody buys a whole bunch of houses and wants to redevelop, then they're annexing into the city for this new redevelopment if they're doing that in a rural subdivision. As county staff, we've had the point back to them of, well, say you say you're not going to allow rural subdivisions, but what if you have a board change in 20 years and now rural subdivisions are allowed? Now how are we going to deal with those types of things? So there's still a lot of open discussion going back and forth, and we need to have input from our boards. And we've had discussions saying directives from our board members that they want the ETA eliminated. We're asking the question, what's that take? How would the city be comfortable with that? And some of the discussions we've had is, and they're just discussions, it was, if you're next to the city has put in a lot of effort of identifying where major water mains need to go, new sanitary sewer lines, studies for stormwater, and incorporating them. Do you look at a land use plan that is developed by a county and the city and county both have to have boards that vote on it and approve it to be able to go forward? But those are such preliminary discussions, they might not go anywhere. Sure. But from what the city has proposed, if that's accepted, there's a lot of floodplain and special flood hazard area that would come back, and pretty much where all the people live would come back to the county. And if there's a issue, they'd be filing. If it's in the right away, we deal with it as the highway department and go from there. But if it's a different issue,
The drainage issue or
come
to this board?
It would. I'd say we, as the highway department, we probably take care of the most of the issues. And kind of the good news is you've had people living there for a long time. These are known issues now. It's not sudden. And the newer ones, from what it was 30 years ago to now, there's a lot of lessons that have been learned by city and county staff. A lot of policies have been changed. We're far more aggressive in how things are treated up front than how it is, than how it used to be back then. And that's just from lessons learned.
So, Casey, Mr. Chairman, let me ask this question. Was the map that was just talked about proposed by the city or the county?
The city had proposed that map.
Okay.
Going through there.
I've been out for a while, so appreciate that.
Yeah, and they emailed us a map, and we looked at. We met again yesterday afternoon, kind of going over a lot of it and some of our concerns and city staff's concerns, and the city staff's going to present it next week, Wednesday, at the joint meeting, and the boards will give input, and we'll go from there.
Is that a public meeting or is that just for a couple boards?
It's a public
Public
meeting.
Yeah.
5 p.m.?
I think it's 4 p.m. is their normal
I-
time. They sometimes have delayed it to 5 if it's a bigger item.
Legal question, and maybe David can answer this. If they're talking about X number of square miles Do not the citizens that own that property have to go to a public vote on that? In some states.
For
they do.
ETA,
For ETA,
that's not my understanding of it.
okay.
The part we were discussing is your zoning is just different a little bit, like, one area, Imperial Valley's RM, is R5, R10. Well, as a county, we really don't have that. So we'd have to look, okay, how does that zoning potentially change? It's not like we're gonna say, hey, you gotta redo all your houses. That's ridiculous. Nobody's
Well,
gonna
yeah,
do that.
no.
But it's just working through the mechanics of how that applies.
Mr. Chairman, from the background scenario, the legislature, the statute basically was set up that the cities could take up to 4 miles, and it was the city's choice. Then the statute was changed to where it's 4 miles or negotiated line between the city and county. And the city and county originally, when that law was passed, negotiated the line that currently exists today. In some cases, it's 2 miles out or 3.5 miles out or whatever. And now the discussion is to go back in and revisit that negotiated line. And what does that negotiated line mean? There's no vote by the public relative to that change. It's the cities and the jurisdictions agreeing to that new line.
We'd be reducing it from what it is.
Right.
Currently on the line, and it gets a little confusing because then it also becomes, well, who's in, who's not, and the line really starts spinning around all these existing subdivisions. And a good example is Grand Prairie Estates off 43rd. That all of a sudden would be out, and it's, well, that's pretty close to town, but then further out, there's parts that are still, that the cities, hey, we got to be able to grow between Grand Prairie Estates and items, areas north of 71st, and we got to be able to go to the northeast, and they're, well, you can type in your address on this proposed map and see if you're in or out. And I mean, we like to pick on Marcus and say he's the ultimate boomer, and he's like, I don't know how to run this. Get over here and tell me how to do it, and type it all in. So it's a little, it can be a little confusing trying to get through the map and how it goes through, but that's part of it's so preliminary now, it still has to get refined. And that, all of this is if that happens. Nothing's been decided going through there. I mean, if it goes back to the old way where city has 100% jurisdiction at 2 mile, then it's joint jurisdiction from 2 to 4 mile. I don't think anybody wants to do that, but part of what we talked about also in the reduction area is, do we look at a potential joint jurisdiction? But none of us ever liked that because that was such a headache getting through the joint jurisdiction. That's why we went to the negotiated boundary in the first place. But we have to have those preliminary discussions and just say, okay, what's the pros and cons of each, and why is this a good idea? Why is this a bad idea? And be able to just openly and honestly discuss it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for the.
Mr. Chairman, I got a couple of questions for Mitch.
Okay.
Do you want me to pull this map up?
If you can.
Yeah.
I think there's a way to.
Plug it right,
While Mitch was doing that, is there a thought of somebody attending that? I can't attend next
I
week,
will.
but Kathleen, you'll.
Yeah, I will not be around. I'll be in Montana.
Okay.
So,
So Kathleen can be there. I assume Casey will be there too, and yeah, at the meeting, obviously. But yeah.
They're exciting.
Well, there's a few people out there that are going to be very excited.
Yeah.
So the areas that are hashed red on the map are the areas they're going to remove from their ETA.
Well,
That they propose.
that's being proposed, right?
Yeah, the hatches, the proposed on the northwest, that's kind of the Misty Waters area. Then you can see all the existing rural subdivisions that are within the city. Is then kind of that dark blue, purple, whatever color you want to call it.
Yep.
That you're looking at kind of the city limits. Outside of that, they have an orange area that's the priority, short-term can be developed. And some of that's in the city because there's donut holes. Then they have a dark orange-red area that's 25-year, and a gray area that's 50 years out that they're looking at. Then they want an airport buffer that goes around essentially where Apple Creek's right next to the airport, because the airport and FAA want to have a high amount of input on that, and we're still discussing it. Then on the south side, you can see a lot of the floodplain area is just out 100%, and that's where a lot of issues with the CRS that would have Mitch hopping a lot
Yeah.
down there.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's, I'm gonna ask the GIS coordinator if he can determine the actual floodplain area in volume. It's kinda, yeah, it's, most of theirs, yeah, so.
Dennis, you had a couple of questions.
Yeah, you mentioned the violations that were identified. What's the requirement? Do you have to have them fixed? Do you have to have a plan to have
Don't know
those
yet.
fixed? Don't know yet, okay.
I wish I did. Yeah, that was understood by me when I took training at the FEMA Institute in Baltimore for a week on the CRS. And it was explained to me many times that in your application, they don't go backwards. They go forwards. They don't look at past. They don't look at they want to look at how you're doing it now.
So
And I do have places to improve. I absolutely, there's many areas that I have to improve. One of the ECs are what they focus on. That's their main focus. The elevation certificates and how you maintain them and how they're made and how they're created and how they're done and approved and all that stuff. So
with that training, you're saying the past sins are forgiven in that training? Is that what you're saying?
well, two instructors told me that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know what
That would make sense.
Region 8 the guy, Tom Burney, he's very knowledgeable. He's really a very smart guy about this, but I don't know what he wants.
Okay.
It's he's going to write the letter, and so.
And then the other question, given that, and then given this ETA discussion, I mean, so we're mostly through this process, is my feeling or thought. And so to discontinue it now would not be advisable. I guess that's my question.
No, if this growth phasing plan is approved and the ETA is handed over, these areas handed over to Burleigh County, then we're going to have to start over.
Yeah, that's coming, I was wondering.
Yeah,
lot more
absolutely,
parcels
because it's,
Properties.
we focused just on Burleigh County. And
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, from the standpoint, Dennis, I concur with you. When you have the violations that are out there, now that they've identified the violations, whether they're going through the CRS process or not, they're violations as part of the program. So you got, other ramifications of that. That what they need to do, obviously, is Mr. Burney's going to look at it and say, okay, which ones these are critical, which ones aren't critical, and then make a decision on those as to what may or may not need to be done with each one of them. But like I said, I think from the additional areas suddenly being put into the county side of the equation, if you will, there's going to have to be a new audit, more than likely. I agree with you, Mitch. You almost start over and say, okay, we've done it for this piece. Now we got to take a look at all these other areas and see what's out there. And then, of course, you've got a records scenario. What records did the city keep versus, county's kept its own records for its, but now you've got all the city records. So those city records would have to be transferred over. I'll just be honest with you. When you look at the change of the ETA and that's why I questioned who was proposing the map. There's a lot of unintended consequences here that need to be debated and discussed prior to the final decision. And I think, James, you're right. I think the Water Resource District is probably going to be in a position of having other issues that it's going to have to address with that level of change. So,
Mr. Chairman, just, back to the benefit of doing this, I think there's other benefits beyond premium reductions for NFIP insurance holders. There's other benefits. I mean, so the fact that there's 160, which is I think is a pretty small number.
That was shocking. I didn't realize that was.
Yeah, it is. But
But
beyond that, there's other benefits.
Yeah, it does make the county more resilient. It makes the floodplains more resilient, makes, but it's also the hardest part of my job is talking to these people. They don't want to see me,
Right.
and they get angry. And so but I mean, it will make Burleigh County way more resilient in the floodplains.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions for Mitch? Casey, do you have something else too? Thanks, Mitch.
The other portion that's going to affect things is MS4 violations. Going through with stormwater, we only have a few small areas, and when we have to deal, it's a difference of dealing with the feds because they're like, "What's ETA? That's insane. Nobody does that." And we're one of the only states that has that type of thing, and we say, "Well, I can't do anything because that's in the ETA. That's under the city of Bismarck's control." And they go, "Yep, cool. You still got to answer all these questions."
Right.
And we always have to go through all of that. Then for erosion control in the ETA, the city currently handles all of those portions because they have the authority. If that goes away, that's then gone. And then we don't have a public works department, so we don't have that authority. So we have to call the state and bring in DEQ to go through that. And everything gets amped up quickly on there. And I don't see the county board currently wanting to add a new public works department or anything like that. So there's concerns that are back and forth that we have discussed that affect many things, but listening to testimonies of the people that have come up and talking about it, they want the ETA gone, or where it's not affecting them personally anymore at all. And that's been the testimony of the people who live in the ETA at least.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's exactly
Okay.
the thing.
All right, thanks, Casey. Good discussion. And certainly, at this point, if we need to have representatives at some of these meetings, just to make sure if there's questions that are thrown out there, or just general input, then you can provide back to the board, Kathleen, that'd be
I
great.
will.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be complicated, Mr. Chairman, on a number of different aspects to understand all of the nuances. I mean, Casey pointed some of them out, and I greatly appreciate it. And I'll use a legislative phrase. What's the fiscal note to the county
Right.
for getting this property back? We don't know what that is, but it would be a question as a technical person that I would raise. You go to the public works side of the equation. You may need a public works in order to address this. Might the water resource district need additional mill levy because you're going to be assisting the county with certain things? There's some unknowns with that level of change. So I just point that out as an observation, not making any recommendation either side of that equation. So.
Yep, I was thinking the exact same things, Michael.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's something we've thought through more because we've had more discussions on there, is the existing drainage easements that are in there. If I can't reach it from the public right away, we've already talked with you guys about a lot of these areas. So because they're established, it is a lot of known stuff. It's not going to be unknown coming up. So that kind of helps. And good examples is the kind of the Country Creek, Country Hills type areas like that. It's stuff that's similar to those types of things that come through in the existing ETA
Or like
area.
the tree planting things that happen, and fences that get put up and stuff. So I do think that this would probably increase our interactions and kind of things going on throughout the county. But
Yeah, it will on those parts, but because it's established, you have that part of the advantage.
Yep.
So it's not from scratch.
from the
nothing.
water side, it's pretty established. Yep. Okay. Well, see, Kathleen, we had a minimal agenda, but good discussions this morning. Okay, well, that's, anything else for new business this morning? Okay, we can move on to item 12, just some general correspondence. There's some additional plats and stormwater management plans there for a few subdivisions and plats that you can request from Wendy if you want to look through those. And then item B there, we did get a notice of the Bismarck Mandan Metropolitan Planning Organization's having a meeting, looks like next week as well. I don't think we typically have anybody attend those, you know, if there's something that comes out of it, we usually get notified. Next item in your packet there on page 15, we did get a public notice from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on a project with the city of Bismarck up on Tyler Parkway, Tyler Cooley. They're going to be connecting over, constructing a new road from Tyler Cooley or Tyler Parkway across that Cooley to, not sure what that Cogburn Road, I think is the name of it. Yep.
Right, Mr. Chairman, just a quick background on that one. Because Valley Drive has actually been designated as a dam, Tyler Parkway that they're building not to dam standards, they're building to roadway standards. So it would not be a regulated dam under the state program.
Oh, okay.
So at one point in time, it was designed as a high hazard facility, but now they switched it to build it as a roadway so that they've got the various storage components, so they do not need the dam classification on that. So just wanted to point that out.
Okay. I guess my question, so this is coming from the Corps, basically, you know, looking for public input or public comments for their permitting. You know, and of course, they got the endangered species and cultural resources, things of that nature throughout there. Do we have any, I guess, input coming up, Michael, regarding, some of these embankments and some of the,
If in fact it were
major
to,
drainage?
and that's why I pointed it out, if in fact it were to get to a state application for a dam permit, you would have a regulatory comment period or comments on this. In this particular case, you do not, because there isn't a state permit, it's a roadway. So from that perspective, and it's all in the ETA, it's all part of the overall master plan for the city of Bismarck to go that way. It's just an extension of road over the coulee.
Right.
So.
Even though I was kind of curious, the deadline already expired August 20th. It was a 15-day notice.
Oh.
It was published on August 5th, it expires August 20th.
Oh, there it is,
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is it a nationwide permit? I guess I didn't look
Yeah,
too
pretty
deeply
much,
into it,
yes.
but-
Yep, it's nationwide.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they go out on notice.
Okay, so at this point, it's just more for reference and informational purposes then. Okay, thank you. All right, in addition, we did get notified from North Dakota, the Joint Water Convention. There are some award applications. If anybody's got any thoughts or ideas on that, you can certainly submit those. If you want, and there's more information in the packet there if you want to read through that to determine that process. Okay. If nothing else, we can move on to item 13 this morning, approval of the bills.
Mr. Chairman, page 26 is the summary of the bills. I did go through the math. It adds up. Majority of the bills is from McDowell Dam. One thing to note is that the last entry on page 26 is Cowboys in that amount. That's if you remember, we had the snafu with them not getting the first check, and then the second check had they wanted their name changed on the check. And so this is actually the third time, so it's included in the calculations here, but it's for not real money going out. It's just, but with that, we still should approve that issuance of that updated check. So the math adds up. I'd move for approval of payment in bills of $44,154.88.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Manager Reap and a second by Manager Jones to approve this month's bills. Any discussion? If not, Wendy, take a roll call vote, please.
Manager Mitchell,
Yes.
Manager Reap,
Yes.
Manager Jones,
Yes.
Manager Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Landenberger.
Yes, motion passes, bills will be paid. Mitch, did you have something else you want to? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I forgot to mention that on the UMary land, the destabilization of that project up there, we need an emergency permit for that. And I need to issue it. I don't know who to issue it to for this project.
Oh,
Yeah, one of the ones that's been out there, we've been talking to can't think of his name, with the state relative to the floodway. And they were waiting for the analysis to show whether or not we had an impact to the floodway change. I'll get back with Nick on that and have him check with the state on the status of that. They've been kind of holding off because we didn't know what exactly was happening with the overall bank instability. But yeah, Mitch is the local requires a floodplain development permit or floodway permit notification. So at one point in time, we weren't going to survey it because we were afraid of what, risk of the crews out there. But I'll double check with Nick on the status. So good point. Thanks, Mitch.
One other thing, there's a lot of mail up for the Water Resource Board.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah. Yeah, we determined that. I guess we have a mailbox here. I wasn't.
I did remember that. Now that's brought up, but you forget about it. And so-
Yeah.
So we now have correspondence that came to a physical address. This is a long story there. Sorry.
Okay. And, remaining items in your packet are just kind of some more detailed information on the bills for this month. Our next meeting is scheduled currently for October 8th in this room at 8 a.m. Everybody can attend? Good? Okay. Anything else this morning? All right. Doing other business before the board, we are adjourned.